the Creative Chats podcast with Mike Brennan. Welcome to another episode of Creative Chats. It's the podcast for artists, makers, and content creators where we talk about creativity, the creative process, and story. I'm your host, Mike Brennan. I'd love to invite you to stop by dailycreativehabit.com. I have created all sorts of resources for you because I truly believe that when you create, we all win. So I want to see as many of you stepping into your creativity fully, closing the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And I want to help you do that. So I've created resources like the Daily Creative Habit Journal. I've written a book, Make Fun a Habit. I have all sorts of free resources like this podcast and a Facebook group called Daily Creative Habit. Also, the paid membership for Daily Creative Habit, where we get together with like-minded creators, all pushing in the same direction, encouraging each other, and saying we're going to show up every single day to create something to get our work out there into the world. So if you would like to be a part of any of those things, again, stop by dailycreativehabit.com or simply visit my website, which is mikebrennan.me. Hey, we've got an amazing episode of Creative Chats coming up for you here today. But before we get to that, I want to let you know about another opportunity for you. And yes, I know I'm always talking about opportunities for you because I believe in your ability to create. I believe with my whole heart that when you create, we all win. And so I'm always coming up with new ways of getting you to be able to tap into your creativity, to show up and create every day or as often as you can. And so I want to invite you into a new 15-day creative challenge. And this is going to start June 1st, 2024. This time around, there is a fee of $9, which is basically 60 cents a day for you to invest in your creativity. I think that's kind of a no-brainer price. And this is for you. If you're looking for a kickstart, a jumpstart to your creativity, maybe you've been trying and kind of doing in fits and spurts, and maybe you joined us for the last 30-day creative challenge back in January, and since then you've kind of fallen off again and you need a little bit of a kickstart. This would be a great opportunity for you to join us. And 15 days doesn't sound like a lot, and it's going to be short, manageable creative acts that are going to be prompts for you every single day. You will be able to do this. Trust me. Again, we're talking 10, 15 minutes a day, but it's really just to get things moving and started again if you've been stalled out for a little while. So if you want information about this, you want to join the challenge, go to mikebrennan.me/15-challenge. And I'll put that in the show notes so you can click that and check that out and join us for the challenge that starts June 1st, 2024. So this is part 2 of the Creativity for Happiness episode. This was taken from a live Zoom event, and we talked about creativity and happiness and mental health. And if you did not listen to the previous episode, you're going to want to press pause on this right now and make sure that you go and listen to part 1 so that you have context, so that you have the whole conversation, because this episode is simply going to pick up where the last one left off. And there's a lot from Glenn Stevens, who talks about the brain science behind creativity and mental health. And then also our Q&A time is part of this episode as well. So be sure to listen in, take some notes, and I hope it helps you on your creative journey. So without further ado, here is part 2 of Creativity for Happiness.
But it's a great segue because you're talking about your brain, and here we are. Glenn is our final, conversational speaker today, and he is incredibly knowledgeable about what's going on up there in the brain when we actually do create. So I'll put you on stage, Glenn.
Thank you so much,
Amanda.
Angie. Yeah, thank you, Amanda and Mike and Angie, for what you've shared so far, and everybody sharing in the chat. It's been really fun to hear your stories so far, and a little bit about my story. So part of what I do is I'm a mental fitness coach. I'm also a business made simple coach. That's how I met Angie. We were at a Made Simple Summit where guides who use their creativity to do marketing, and I'm a coach, and we use our creativity to help people break through barriers that they're facing in business. And so we got to meet, and Angie was telling me about Simple Daily Drawing and how it started with her daughters during the pandemic, and they needed, like, she remembered, right, Angie, way back when they were little girls, who used to do art, and that was like this happy place for them.
Mm-hmm.
And the world wasn't a happy place. And it's like, okay, let's go back to art and recreate this happy place for my girls. And then it just blossomed into this big community. And light bulbs were just going off in my brain as you were telling me that. And I couldn't help but share what I've been learning about the brain and neuroscience. And we have neural pathways in our brains. There's something called neuroplasticity, all these big words, right? But if you think of it, the simple way is, think of your brain as having like these two major parts. And the brain's job is to help you survive first and then thrive second. Those are like the two main jobs. And we have neural pathways. So think of your brain also having paths and roads. Some are gravel roads, some are dirt roads, some are paved roads, some are super highways. And when an event happens that gets triggered in our brain, we have thoughts, and they either go down into this part of the brain where we're trying to survive, or they go to the part of the brain where we're thriving. And what what happens is, if we spend too much time, survival is really great. And there's negative emotions like alert, fear, watch out, be careful, danger, alert. That's a gift that our brain does that for us. And it's really helpful for about 1 second. And it's like, okay, after that 1 second, I don't need to stay in alert mode anymore. But the pathways that go there, like, we create those first so we don't, so we can survive. And so the natural tendency is to take those little pathways. Well, I can get in the weeds, so I'm going to try to come back out of the weeds a little bit. And when Angie was describing her girl's drawing, I knew immediately, oh, there's two things going on. One, when we focus on a physical sensation, so touch, Amanda talked about color, visual, and texture, touch. There's also sound, there's also taste, even our breath. We can focus on our breath. When we focus for just 10 seconds on a physical sensation, it impacts our brain. And the part of our brain where where the negative emotions are and the fear alerts are, calms down a little bit. And the part of our brain where we're creative and have grace for ourselves and for other people, where we're innovative, where we're curious. Mike talked about being curious again. The part of our brain where we connect to what truly matters in our lives. That part of our brain, that's where happiness happens. And those are different neural pathways. And so we need to, when we're kind of like, I call it being hijacked, when we're hijacked by negative emotions, when we can recognize that, if we do, if and this is where art is so important, if we will concentrate on a physical sensation, that will calm our brain down, and it heats up the part of our brain where we can do our creative work. And so Angie's girls and Angie and all the people in your community, when you would stop and you start drawing, well, you pick up a pencil or a pen or a brush, and there's a texture there. And then visual really gets activated. You're focusing on the visual. And when our brain is going all over the place all the time, right? Boo, crazy. And it's hard to focus. But when we focus, we get in the moment. And when we're in the moment, that's when flow can happen. That's when we aren't worried about the future because we're in the moment and just focus there. And we're not regretting or questioning or asking, or beating ourselves up for the past. Instead, we're just in that moment. And so art with visual and with textual, like all the materials you're using, when we use art, there's also smells that, different applications and materials that we use. If we focus on that, so when we focus, we get in the moment and we get to be just there. And when we're there, we light up the part of our brain and we're able to take these neural pathways. And what I loved about Mike was saying that the creative daily habit and simple daily drawing is, it's almost like this, we're building and reinforcing the neural pathways that take us to the part of our brain where we are happy, where we are creative, where we are curious, where we have grace and empathy for ourselves and others. And one of the things that, and I also loved that Angie was saying, hey, in our community, I mean, you get booted if you are this negative critical person and you post something, oh, that's terrible or that's ugly. Two brains again. When we are really negative in that way, we're using neural pathways that take us into the part of the brain for survival, and we're staying there. We're camping out there. And what we call that in the work I do. So my certification in mental fitness coaching is from a company called Positive Intelligence out of San Francisco. And Positive Intelligence, mental fitness. What I do is I train the brain to eliminate negative emotions, thoughts, and behaviors so we can be resilient and creative and courageous and show up the way we want to show up. That's what mental fitness, and do it quickly. And when we're negatively critical, we call that the voice in your head is your judge voice. And we have this judge, we call it saboteur, where we sabotage ourselves. And that saboteur, we judge others negatively, we can judge circumstances negatively, and then we can judge ourselves negatively. And I was, Mike, when you were talking about that first drawing in the Starbucks of the Starbucks cup, and it's like, oh, that's hideous, that's terrible. And what did you feel? The emotion was ashamed. There was a negative emotion there, but you didn't stay there. You pivoted and you said, you know what? It's okay. I'm going to give myself grace and I'm going to draw again. And the daily aspect of this is you're actually building and reinforcing those neural pathways that go into your part of your brain where the good stuff happens and where you feel happy. And you're starving those neural pathways that go into the part of the brain where all those negative emotions and imposter syndrome, and where you feel like you need to hide, and where you feel like, well, the voice in your head is just beating the crap out of you, and telling you you're not okay. I was doing some work on my judge saboteur, putting to words what that saboteur, when it is hijacked in my brain, and I'm in the part of my brain where it's having too much influence on me. I wrote some stuff, and then I plugged it into AI, Dolly, Angie, and asked that it would create a drawing of what my judge saboteur looks like. I'm going to share on my screen. This is what came out from my words describing my judge saboteur. This was the drawing it gave me.
Wow.
And it's like, I'm letting this guy live in my head rent free. That's let's evict this dude.
Wow, that's a visual. I mean,
it
incredible.
when I saw it, it was jarring, right? It's like, okay, that
Wow.
that is sort of like this representation of what my judge saboteur, how it treats me and what it's like, how I experience it. And some of you can probably relate. And so what we really talk about is um, um, instead of judgment, let's be just discerning and let's learn. One of the if you forget everything else I talk about today, there's the pivot Mike talked about and Angie's talked about and Amanda's talked about like, just get some color on some canvas or just draw or just, put something out there and enjoy the process rather than only thinking about the result and judging the result. We call that just discernment. And you know what? You can look at something that you've created and say to yourself, "Oh, what can I learn from this? How could I? What is there anything I'd change?" And that's a very curious, positive, uplifting, exciting, actually, chance to learn and grow and develop versus the judge saboteur, that image I had of this person sitting on my shoulder going, that's terrible. Who do you
Mm-hmm.
think you are?
Mm-hmm.
You're not an artist. You can't do anything right. Like those voices. And so recognizing when you're hearing those voices, so to speak, in your head, that negative, you're in a part of your brain that's there to keep you alive, but you're alive right now. So you don't need that anymore. Tell it to shut up. And then do some focus, maybe just close your eyes and focus on your breath for set a timer for a minute and calm down. Let's actually, let's just do it right now. Go ahead, close your eyes and take in a deep breath and focus your attention on just the rising and falling of your chest cavity and your diaphragm as you breathe. And your brain's going to want to go lots of different places, but just tell it gently to focus on your breath let's do it for 20 seconds. And another thing you can do is you can bring in the auditory. Listen to the difference in the sound when you breathe in and when you breathe out. It's actually different. Your brain's going to want to go run over and think about this or think about that, or your judge might even pop up and say, oh, this is stupid or dumb, or I feel awkward. And just gently push that aside and put your focus again on your breath and the sound of your breath. So, I mean, that's really simple. You can go ahead. Thanks for playing with me on that. But I don't know if I feel different, even just doing that right now. Like, whew, I just sort of came down a little bit. So, one idea, if you're ever feeling stuck or you're feeling like it's a chore or, oh, it would be, oh, okay, that's a negative emotion. I'm going to just focus on my breath, or I'm going to grab my art materials and just notice. I'm going to look at them and just notice the colors, notice how it feels when I pick it up, notice the sounds it makes as I move that in. Focus on one of your senses, and then just sort of tell your brain, I'm going to go to a creative place now, or I'm going to go to a curious place now, or I'm going to give myself like a boatload of grace right now for feeling the way I feel and not judge myself for it. I'm just going to say, yeah, it's sort of a hard morning, or I don't feel as great as I want to be, but I'm not going to let it stop me. Instead, I'm going to get curious about maybe what I see, smell, feel, and then allow that to be the little spark that can turn into a flame of, okay, now I'm going to put that first line on the piece of paper, or open that first
Yeah.
whatever. So I one other help I'm going to share about empathy or grace to yourself that I found can really help a lot of people when you're feeling like that imposter syndrome or whatever. That's when we need grace, and we need empathy for ourselves. And one little game I teach people to play is to imagine your child. And a real good thing to do is like go back into your photographs of you as a little kid. Find a photograph of you about 4 years old that when you look at it, it's just like makes you smile. It's like, oh, I remember that little kid. Angie, you talked about playing. Like this is just for play, right? Instead of putting this pressure to perform, I want to go play. Well, you can remember that little girl who's still the essence of your personhood is still, you're still Angie at 4. You've grown, you developed, you changed, but you're still Angie. You're still the same person. And remembering that little girl, and in that moment, just focus on her, grab that picture, look at her, remember that's who you are, and how much she loved to play, and how creative she was, and how free she was, or how adventurous she was, or whatever. And just sort of like let that sort of just wash over you,
Mm-hmm.
and remember her, and talk to yourself like you would talk to that little girl. You wouldn't say to that little girl, oh, you dumb piece of whatever, like get moving or get your butt. Like you would be so, you'd look at her if she was afraid or scared. You'd say, it's okay. It's safe here.
Yeah.
You can, you can go play. It's okay.
I
I
love
love
that.
you.
I
Yeah.
love that.
So that's, I'll wrap up with that. Like you, Angie, I could talk about this for a long time.
I could listen.
Yeah, I took some good notes. I do want to say, ironically enough, the other day, leading off of your, just real quick, the child aspect.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. My mom found the preschool report, okay, of
Yeah.
me. And if it said anything that could have been negative, like struggled with, fine motor skills doing, those types of things. If I struggled, she
Yes.
put working on it, comma, creative. Anytime she could have done something negative, she put very creative. But my favorite one, and this is where, like you're saying, Angie is Angie.
Yes.
I think I need this tattooed somewhere, but it said, likes to lead, but has a hard time finding followers. And if that's not true to my adult life, I don't know what is. So that's all I got.
Well,
Yeah.
Glen, I also want to chime in. I love listening to you talk about this. It's fascinating to me. But the fact of the matter is, the fact of the gray matter is that
Yes.
we are in control. And I think that there's
Yes.
there's a common theme here with every one of us. Mike talked about it. I talked about it. Amanda, and then you, is awareness, is that we are all in control of our thoughts and our processes, and whether it's the community member that knows you and says, hey, get back on the saddle, or whether it's you being so in tune with yourself saying, I have to do something different today.
Yeah.
Make that. There's this awareness theme that, and Amanda, like, use color, like, you stop the saboteur.
Yeah.
I almost view this as, it's like, okay, we're on cruise control. We're all in cruise control. And then we, hit a traffic jam.
Yeah.
We stop, right? And we're stopped and we're like, what the heck happened? There's been forever creative block. I mean, we all know that this is legitimately a thing.
Yeah.
What then gets you out of the traffic jam and back into cruise control?
Yes.
And that's being aware of, I almost look at it like a stop sign, like, And then you lean into a daily creative habit. You lean into just put paint on canvas, or you lean into, I'm going to be honest about this with my community so someone can pull me out of this.
Mhm.
It's a theme that, and we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but it's a very common theme here. And because what Mike and myself and Amanda are doing are exactly what you just described, as far as changing the neuro whatevers of
Yep.
our mind to
Yes.
get out of that traffic jam, and so that we can, push the
Yes.
receptors in the right place. I
This is
love it.
so important, Angie. I'm gonna jump in. It's like you are every time you use the road, we have so much agency, is the word I like to use.
Yeah.
We have every time you use the road. So the daily aspect of this, you're using the same road to be curious and creative and grace filled for yourself and for even the product you produce, right? And your community can bring grace to you. So like every day you're doing that, you're using neural pathways, and every time you use one, it gets reinforced. And so it's like you turn this little dirt path into a gravel road, into a highway that's paved, into a super highway. And so the more you do it, it's like you're building this road system in your brain. And the work's been done. Like you hook your brain up to a functional MRI machine. And when you do this kind of thing consistently over time, your brain looks different. Like in the work we do, 6 to 8 weeks working with somebody on doing very intentional workouts to build your mental fitness, which is about 15 minutes a day, you will see, like your brain, if you hooked it up, there's more gray matter in the part of our brain where we're creative and curious, and there's atrophy in the part of our brain where the negative emotions live. Literally, you change the composition of your gray matter when you do this daily habit. So I want to just really applaud you and reinforce the work you're doing. You're actually changing people's brains for the better through simple daily drawing, through the creative daily habit, through creating art that people can go and look at visually and focus their attention for a while and be in the part of their brain where they're not overthinking stuff and they're just in touch with emotions and feelings. And it's a beautiful thing.
Does anyone in the audience, is that what we're called, audience, want to ask any questions? We have about 15 minutes left that we had slotted for this. First of all, I love how you're drawing through this. I think that's cool. Yeah, because it's sort of meditative and listening and like drawing at the same time. I probably couldn't juggle, but
Well, I have twin 9-year-olds in the background. They're playing PlayStation, watching TV. So anytime that I can get creative and meditative, especially with this group, and Mike, I'm part of his group there, and so I'm making sure that I'm doing the right thing in front of my teacher, in front of my boss there. So
yeah. Oh, I love
Good
that.
job, Tim. Good job.
Did anyone want to chime in and ask any questions or just reinforce anything that was said?
Absolutely not. We don't need to work on the anxiety this morning, Angie. I've already had to play the tambourine.
Amanda has an interesting ritual when she's getting ready to do an event or something that she's not sure of. Oh, that's a good question. Dawn, I like that. She does like a song, like the Walk Like an Egyptian is her thing. And she plays a song and dances and just gets in the mood. But the thing that's interesting with Amanda is she actually wears sunglasses. And wearing sunglasses gives her the courage to, do what she has to do, no matter what, even if it's I wear my sunglasses at night, but even if it's just during the day when I just puts a pair of shades on and becomes her persona and does her thing. And I think that that's really cool.
Well, thank you. Real quick, the sunglasses is stuff I thought about wearing them when we like did this intro, and I was like, no, it's not officially public speaking, so I'll save it for later. I can dart my eyes around here, but public speaking, they're on for sure. Don't even question it.
Dawn
I was going to say, I'd love to jump in and answer Dawn's question.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
From my perspective, as far as knowing how to get motivated when you're in a rut, because I've experienced that many times, right? I mean, 12 years of a daily creative habit, certainly there are periods where I'm like, I'm in the rut. And so for me, I think it's introducing a new element. Because again, it goes back to me, it's about curiosity, right? It's about making this interesting again, because ruts happen when we get too familiar and we get too comfortable. And so creativity is always about exploring. It's about possibility. It's about like, what can I make, right? And then the more that you engage with that process, the more ideas start happening and the more you get excited about wanting to execute that. And so I think busting out of ruts, sometimes it was changing the theme of what I was making, right? So like I said in the beginning, it was maybe, me looking at a whole year going, how am I going to do a whole year? Well, I broke it down to 7 days of flowers and then 7 days of pets and then 14 days of faces. And I kept changing an element in there just to explore and play. And I think when you keep yourself in that place of this is play, this is exploration, this isn't quote work, that also guards against you feeling like you're stuck in a rut. So if you're feeling like you're in the middle of it, change something up. Introduce a change agent and see what happens. Follow that curiosity. That's what my advice would be on that.
I love that, Mike. I like to change things all the time, and I don't realize that other people actually fear change, because I'm just like, just told my husband the other day, like, we got to change out these rugs, because I either that or I'm moving the furniture in the living room. Like, I gotta change. But my life has sort of been in a way that if I didn't embrace change, I would have probably spiraled into a very bad place because I was forced into it. But being aware that I don't have to continue doing things in the way that I am. I can introduce a change agent. Just that awareness is such good advice. Introduce an agent of change. I'm going to actually keep that, like, write that down somewhere and keep that. The other thing I just wanted to say, like, if you're feeling in a rut, and I tend to go, I think, into more of the leaning into other people versus leaning into myself. I think we all are very, it's difficult to be vulnerable, and we all try to be a person that everyone wants to, look up to, but, and I'm not going to call out a particular name, but Jenny Howells, who's in, and Terry, they're very good at posting and sharing the stories about their own struggles of getting in a rut. And I think that helps. What was that? Oh. But I think that sometimes, like, getting out of the rut is realizing that other people are also experiencing the exact same rut, maybe not the same situation, but the same rut. And then being transparent and being vulnerable and having the courage to say, I'm in a rut, with the people that you are in the community with and feel safe around. Because it does sometimes just take one comment that says, did you try this? You've got this. I'm there too. Sometimes it just takes that one comment that really just triggers something in your head that says, okay, well, we're going to do this together. We're going to get out of this together. This is normal. This is absolutely acceptable. And part of the problem with being in a rut, in my opinion, is that you don't know when it ends. Like, it's one thing to be in a rut if you have the deadline is tomorrow and I'm going to be just fine tomorrow. I'm going to wake up and feel great. But with creativity in a creative rut, not knowing how long it's going to last, that's the scary part. To someone like me, I always have creativity, but then when it goes, it's like, how long? Oh my gosh, is this the end of it? Did I lose it? But so getting out of that rut doesn't necessarily have to fall on your own, shoulders. But if you can be transparent, vulnerable, and you do have a safe community to share, that leaning into the people that are already understanding about what you're going through, I think to me, that might be a little like, ooh, I don't know. That to me, that's my advice is talk about it. Talk about it. Share how you feel. Jenny?
I find that sometimes just writing it down makes you sort of look at it from the outside, how other people might see it, and then you can almost come up with the answer yourself.
Yeah.
Rather than just it all going round in here, you get it out somehow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And writing has always been, I always used to tell people, if you don't draw the prompts, write something about them. But yes, but when you're in your own head, getting it out onto paper and then sharing it and letting other people, you just got to be in that safe place, but sharing it to me has been everything. And also it's like Glenn keeps saying, give yourself grace. You're in a rut. Well, what do we expect life to be? Easy peasy? What's the easy peasy eggs and cheesy? Whatever. But like, that's just as important in the process as, being, doing well. Like I always used to tell my daughters, you learn just as much losing the game as you learn winning the game. So you learn just as much when you're in the rut as you learn when you're not in the rut, maybe even more. But Dawn, did that help a little? She's there. Oh, wow. I missed a lot of the, hope so.
I think Kathleen may have had a question or a comment too. I saw before. Yeah.
Unmute myself. Yeah, no, this is Kathleen. Hi. I came in late, but I think I can add to the maybe a little bit of how to get out of that rut. And both Amanda and Angie have hit on it a little bit, but I just wanted to zero in on another aspect, and that is, Amanda, you put on the sunglasses, and that kind of was something for you. And it reminded me that for a while I was in amateur theater, and it helps if you kind of become another person. And if you're cognizant of, hey, I'm really stuck here. I'm in a rut. I don't know how to get out. If you can think of someone that you admire and kind of put yourself in their shoes, so to speak, become that person and say, what would that person do when they're doing their creative thing, whatever that is, and just play around with that. If it takes putting on a hat, sunglasses, a jacket, something, picking up a guitar, sliding across the floor, anything like that, it just gets you out of who you are, where you were, and brings you into a new place. And as you do that, it begins to form those new pathways, those roads to new places that you didn't even know were there. Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Oh, that's
Thanks.
awesome. I appreciate that. I want to say, I think it started in high school because we had to do a speech about someone famous. And of course, I had to go the extra mile and I dressed up like Lucille Ball.
Absolutely.
To do my speech. And I had a big hat on and I had glasses on and I hated speech class. So it's entirely true. I guess that's where it started, to wear a big floppy hat. And then it was fine. I was comfortable with it.
I think
and you kind of become someone else. Mm-hmm.
I think it's cool to bring up the point that when Mike says introduce an agent of change, that doesn't necessarily mean changing out your colored pencils to paints. It can actually just be taking a different route to your work or having a new experience that you haven't done, going to a different restaurant. Like an agent of change doesn't have to be related necessarily to the task at hand, but it can just be anywhere in your life, introducing something different to change out the way you're thinking about things. And it can be a creative element, but I do think that there's value in I know that my daughter, college finals, and she was like, I gotta go to a park today, and I just gotta put up a hammock and lay down and rest and just be, even though she had a ton of things to do, that was but then she could refocus on the other side of that. So that interest or that agent of change isn't necessarily specifically related. So I love that. That's such a cool idea. And Amanda would be very good at the doing something in the persona of someone else. Lucille Ball's fantastic.
Yeah. I want to jump in too and share another idea. It seems like another theme that we're talking about now is how do you break through the ruts and spark some new creativity? And I love the ideas we've shared so far. One game that I teach people to use, we call it, in Kathleen, maybe in acting, improv people use it. It's called the yes and game. And this is where, Angie, you could use somebody in your community and you say, hey, I'm feeling stuck, I'm in a rut, and would you play the yes and game with me? And the way it goes is you share where you're feeling stuck or what's happening, and you play this game for even 5 minutes. It's fun, and you can get a little bit of breakthrough, or maybe 10 minutes. And the game is somebody shares an idea about something you could try, and the other person has to find at least 10% of the idea they like and say, yeah, what I like about what you just said was, and you mentioned that, and then you either build on it or you take it a different direction and say, yeah, what I like about what you were just saying about, dressing up and becoming another person is it puts you in a different mind space, and you can pretend. So you're playing. And I like that idea of playing, and it sets you free because now it's not defining you. You're getting to step out of yourself. And another idea I have is you could try this. And you could go take a shower. And while you're taking a shower, don't think about the project. Just sort of take a shower. And isn't it true? Some of the best ideas happen in the shower, and then you get an idea. But and then that person has to say, what's the 10% at least they like about that idea? And you just keep playing that. And the only goal is to generate ideas.
I love it.
Set a little timer. And then when you're done, the person can say, oh, you know what? I'm going to try this. But it can break you out of your rut playing that little game. And I
actually have Aqua Notes, and it sticks to my shower, and I have a pencil, and it's a tablet. Wow. And the tagline is, don't let your good ideas fall down the drain or wash down the drain. And I write in my shower a lot, which kind of seems weird.
I didn't know you could do that. That's awesome.
They're called Aqua Notes. One of my employees got it for me for Christmas, and every time I run out, I keep buy them again. But we're almost at 11:30. I'm very grateful for my.
Can I just jump in real quick?
Oh yeah.
I want to just give a resource for something we were talking about before, the whole persona thing.
Yeah.
That there's actually something in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. If you're familiar with that, if you're not, I highly suggest you go and get a copy of that book. In that book, he talks briefly in this one section about this whole thing of identity and how asking yourself, what does it look like to be the person that X? In other words, if your goal is, well, I want to be someone who paints regularly or draws regularly. What does that person look like? And then kind of trace that back to, okay, well, that means specifically that person shows up every day and puts in 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. It gives some kind of metrics also around the identity piece. And so that it's not just this nebulous, I want to draw, I want to paint, I want to do these things. So it's being specific, but then also tying it to identity of that's what that person looks like. So at least I have something to model.
I highly recommend that book too. Great ad. Thank you, Mike. And I also like the identity. It's not I want to run. I am a runner. I am a painter. Not I want to paint, but I am this. That's a great book for everyone to read.
Can
Okay.
I add something here too?
Yes.
There's another similar book to that by Todd Herman, who trains athletes, and it's called The Alter Ego Effect. And that goes very specific into how to leverage alter egos for yourself to get into to perform. Some examples being things like Shaquille O'Neal, who adopts a persona to do the things that the player Shaquille O'Neal that we know would do, but the regular Shaquille O'Neal who wants to sit at home and eat bonbons would not.
I love it.
So
I love book recommendations. It was Todd Herman. What
Yep.
was Herman? Okay.
Todd Herman. Let's see. I think it's just one N.
I'll Google it. I love book recommendations.
Well, I'm putting mine in the chat. It's called The Color of Emotional Intelligence. And Glenn, I'm thinking of you. So I don't know if you've read that. I just came across the other day and I just started diving into it. And I was like, I got to share this. So I'll put it in the chat.
Awesome. All right. Well, I want to respect everyone's time here because I'm just very grateful for you guys to jump in and participate this on a Saturday morning. Beverly, it's Atomic Habits. Atomic by James Clear. Yep. We have recorded this event and I will send you guys all of this via recap after whatever the video after the event concludes and I get the link to the video. And I think that I didn't even know what would come of this. And I've gained so many nuggets and I'm just grateful for Mike, Glenn, and Amanda to jump in and then everybody here to, be in our audience and support our cause. We know that you're being pulled in many different directions all the time. And there's many events that you can, spend your time with, but being here reiterates the fact that what we're doing is important. We love to have the support and I love to see faces and have the audience members. So thank you for all for joining us today. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, you just via email, and we will send a follow-up email about how to contact each of us if you would like to do anything further with us or have any further questions. But Mike, Glenn, Amanda, thank you so much for spending your Saturday morning with us. And otherwise, I hope you guys all have just a wonderful, creative rest of your weekend.
Thanks for listening today. I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe, leave a rating and a review. It really helps this podcast be seen and heard by others.